That afternoon at Snow Country Airport, as Flight CG-100 was called for boarding, the two men moved through the crowd, one talking on his phone. He mentioned that Andreas' side was going smoothly, and the ancient god crisis stirred up by the Montretop family had been resolved with ease. With their trip to Snow Country over, he explained his next move: head to the far north once back, then keep searching for clues about the ancient gods. Side by side, they walked off into the crowd as their time in Snow Country ended. At the boarding gate, he handed his ticket to the attendant as the two prepared to depart, drawing a small startled reaction from her. Meanwhile, he got Professor Aoyang on the phone, greeting him and noting that his plan had already made some progress, so he hoped they could talk. He added that he needed to undergo his 5th advancement as soon as possible, and asked for the professor's help. Later, at Dragon Capital Academy, tucked among the sunlit bamboo, he arrived to meet the elder, who remarked that he was standing before her again, much sooner than she had expected. He got straight to the point, explaining that he needed to reach the 5th advancement quickly, and asked her to tell him exactly what breakthrough materials would be required. The elder smiled, remarking that he wasn't as sharp as she'd assumed given all the divine authority ceremonies he'd helped others with. She thought he'd have worked it out on his own. Confused, he asked what she meant. She explained that he was already an ancient god, so changing classes was no longer his only path. Using Dive into the Abyss, he could drag enemies into his domain, kill them, and absorb their energy to grow stronger all the same. But he pushed back, asking how that was any different from the world-destroying ancient gods. He made his stance clear: he still wanted to walk the path of a dragon tamer, treating the abyssal ancient god's power as nothing more than a supplement, and intended to complete the dragon tamer's 5th advancement. The elder listened, a knowing smile creeping across her face. The elder reached over and pulled out an old scroll, sliding it across to him with a faint smile. Unrolling it into a map, she told him to head to the Eastern Sacred Land. The breakthrough materials he needed for the 5th advancement would be waiting there. He studied the worn map in his hands, taking in the route she'd marked. 1 month later, at the Eastern Sacred Land, robed figures of the Flame Python cult gathered before their towering temple, torches blazing as a chilling chant rose into the night. Bound together as sacrifices, 3 captives wept in terror as the ritual closed in around them. Suddenly the ground erupted, a burst of golden light tearing through the earth with a violent roar. From the rubble rose a massive serpent, eyes glowing crimson as it reared into the storm-lit sky. The flame python had been summoned. Its details revealed a fearsome creature. Flame python, level 130. Through earth-burrowing travel, it could dive underground to move at tripled speed, untargetable until it burst free to deal heavy damage and knock up everything around it. Its passive flame scale protection let golden scales absorb 30% of incoming damage and reflect 20% back at attackers. And with Primordial Spirit Guard, once its HP dropped below 50%, it could summon 4 level 120 guards carrying 40% of its attributes, each able to cast a simplified version of its burrowing skill. Facing the beast, one of his companions scoffed that it was just a big snake Zio, you could flatten it with a single meteor. Another found the whole thing dull, muttering it'd be more fun to torture it to death slowly with electrocution. He gave the order: surround it and don't let it burrow back underground. Studying the map, he confirmed this golden python was exactly what he'd come for, scoffing at how foolish the flame python cult was offering human sacrifices in exchange for the power of their so-called flame god. The ice dragon moved first, unleashing wall of frost, conjuring a solid, highly durable ice barrier to block the enemy. Once the wall sealed into an enclosure, every target trapped inside would have their movement slashed by 75% and slowly freeze in place. Then the lightning struck, heavenly prison of myriad thunder crashing down a cage of lightning that trapped the python in a fixed area for 4 seconds while relentless bolts hammered the ensnared beast. As the python thrashed to break free, one of them taunted it. Did it really think it could escape the thunder prison? Trapped in the crackling cage, the serpent writhed helplessly, its glowing eyes fixed on the watching summoner. Then, with a sudden surge, it drove itself downward, golden scales blazing as it slammed toward the ground. Watching closely, he realized what it was attempting. The beast meant to escape underground. The python burst up from the cracked ground, lunging straight toward the smaller, frailer-looking companion hovering above. Too late, he grasped its true intent. The beast had never been trying to flee. It was hunting the one that looked weakest. He shouted a desperate warning for Xiaoji to watch out. But the serpent struck home, its fangs tearing into her as she cried out in pain, a spray of green erupting from the wound. The others froze in shock, their expressions twisting from disbelief to alarm as they watched their companion get hit. One of the horned companions cried out in horror for Xiaoji, watching the attack unfold. The python loomed over the small figure, its crimson eye blazing as venomous green energy radiated from its massive form. Jaws gaping and dripping with venom, the serpent bore down on the terrified companion, who could only tremble and whimper that it was so scary. Then it lunged again, coiling body glowing as it drove another strike toward the helpless girl. The horned companion rushed to reassure the wounded girl, telling her not to worry, that she'd heal her. She cast Fountain of Life, blanketing all friendly targets in a soothing glow that steadily restored their HP. Meanwhile, he noted with some surprise that Xiaoji's poison was even more potent than he'd anticipated. Surrounded by roaring golden flames, he closed in on the weakened beast. With the battle won, the flames coalesced and a reward emerged from the blaze. He obtained the flame python remains one. He hovered amid the swirling fire, the trophy in hand, the fight finally at its end. Holding the remains as flames roared around him, the spectral image of the flame python flickered behind him, its power beginning to flow into him. He closed his eyes as the fiery energy washed over him, the advancement taking hold. A pillar of light erupted skyward as the transformation completed. His class advanced from Abyssal Dragon Knight Roman 4 to Dragon Lord V, now level 121, his strength surging from 24,923 to 48,175, agility from 23,659 to 46,597, and spirit from 23,917 to 47,369. Rising through the flames with the trophy in hand, his new power settled in. His skills now included Dragon Tamer, Dragon's Encouragement, Dragon Annihilation, Breaking the Sky, Weaklings Begone, and Dragon Tamer Aura. Form enhancement strengthened the soul link with his dragon pets, letting their human forms exist independently, able to speak, wear equipment, change classes, and level up. Dive into the Abyss deployed the Chaotic Abyss domain, sealing off the real world while spawning an illusion carrying 70% of his attributes to keep fighting. And Dragon's Dignity unleashed the dragon's full power, granting himself and every dragon pet a 1000% all-attribute boost for 60 seconds, on a 24-hour cooldown. He marveled at his new power, thinking that a 10x boost to all attributes was almost too overpowered. Even limited to just 1 minute and a single use per day, he mused, it was still absurdly strong. The scene then shifted to the far northern borderlands, at the Outpost 1 command office, where a sprawling military base stretched across the snowy wastes. Inside, a man seated at his desk suddenly startled, his expression snapping to alarm at something before him. Composing himself, he picked up the phone and began dialing, a document spread out on the desk beside him. He answered the phone with a simple hello, his glowing device in hand. The caller delivered urgent news. There was word about the ancient gods, and this time there were 3 of them. Caught off guard, he echoed back in disbelief, 3.